It was a special year, and I think it sets us up to have some good momentum going into the off season, and our guys are going to embrace that. We're going to work like we haven't worked before, and you guys know the standard of work here for us. So I think that's going to say a lot, and I'm excited to move forward.
Hey guys, it's Terrence Nan. You're listening to Hear the Spirit, presented by No Game Day. Go Noles.
Hey, what's up? This is Peter Ward, a.k.a. Yo, in the house. So we're listening to Hear the Spirit, presented by No Game Day. Go Live, go Noles.
Hi, this is Charlie Ward, and you're listening to Hear the Spirit, go Noles.
This is Terrell Buckley. You're listening to Hear the Spirit, presented by No Game Day. No Bloody.
But perhaps better known as the greatest corner to ever step on a football field, Deion Primetime Sanders.
Great Deion Sanders, my brother. What's going on, man? I could wake up to that greeting every day, man. That was awesome.
Hello, Noles fans. This is former Seminole Derek Brooks, and you're listening to Hear the Spirit, presented to you by No Game Day.
James Wilder Jr. What's going on, James?
Thanks for having me on. SSOD, Florida State or Die, and go Noles.
William Bar None Floyd.
Gentlemen, what's up?
What's happening, guys? It's Logan Robinson. Hear the Spirit, presented to you by NoleGameDay.com. We are here live on a wonderful Wednesday evening. We've got a special guest with you guys. We kind of hinted at it last week. If you guys are in the Discord, you knew ahead of time. But we've got FSU quarterbacks coach Tony Tokarz with us this evening. Tony, been trying to have you on for a little while now, and you know, it worked out, and definitely after an impressive season like you guys had, super excited to have you on here. Tony, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. So what does it look like after the season's over? Do you get a mental break, or is it immediately to recruiting? I always wonder how that is for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it never really stops. But the changing gears, I guess the shifting of gears is refreshing too. But I mean, we just finished the season with a lot of growth and some good momentum headed into, obviously the recruiting focus that's the period of time that we're in right now. But I mean, great momentum going into our off-season workouts with our guys. And I mean, we just got to keep going and be consistent with it.
I just wanted to ask out of the gate, you know, Jordan obviously announced he'd be returning for the 2023 season back in December. When did you find out that he was going to be coming back for another year? And just how big is this to have him back starting for, I believe, the fourth consecutive season?
Right. I couldn't pinpoint the exact time. It was kind of a fluid conversation and everything. I mean, his focus, I mean, it's impressive. His focus throughout the season was on the game at hand, the week at hand. And I think he just he took things day by day. I don't want to put words in his mouth or speak for him, but at the same time, you could tell he was focused on what was at hand. But I mean, he had a plan, and I mean, we're all fired up about it. He's probably I said it earlier, he's probably the number one recruit we had in this year's class. So
Mm-hmm. What do you think that did to the team, the aftermath from him announcing that to the fan base? What was that reaction from the team? And do you think that kind of helped with a few guys announcing their return? Yeah.
I mean, I think that just Jordan as a person and as a leader, strip football away. You know, I mean, he's a great individual. He's tough. He's smart. He cares about other people and cares about the success of other people. And so when you're playing with a guy like that, I mean, it makes it somebody that you want to go out and put your best foot forward. And I think with some of the other key returners that we had, it played a role in it. I mean, Jordan's been through the fire, and he's shown the climb. He's been the epitome of it and everything. And it's exciting to have him back. Makes me a better coach, that's for sure. But I mean, I think it definitely played a role, and I mean, we're excited to see this going forward.
Yeah, and you kind of talked about it, but obviously it's not just Jordan coming back, Trey Benson, Johnny Wilson, Jared Verse, Fabian Lovett, a ton of guys that are experienced and have produced that are going to be coming back for this team in 2023. How much do you think it says about the culture that's been instilled at Florida State by you, by Mike Norvell, the other coaching staff, even the players policing themselves? How much has that culture paid off in this for some guys to maybe even turn down an NFL future now to come back for Florida State for another year?
Right. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. That is the reason. It is the culture. It is a culture that's driven by people and by relationships. Winning is obviously important, and that's key for all of us, coaches, players, the program. I mean, yes, you want to see that scoreboard where you have more points than the other team every week. But really, to get to that point, you got to lay the foundation with people and with culture, whether it's coaches that care for each other, coaches that care for the players, players that care for the coaches. I mean, it's all inclusive. And I mean, at the end of the day for us, it is how can I push myself and how can I push the people around me to be the best version of themselves. And that's something that I think that this program is living out. And it starts with just how you care about the person next to you.
Going back to this season and the season that you had, what was it like seeing Jordan Travis and the improvement? And when did you see his kind of hunger change? It felt like something changed mentally. We were watching at practice, and Mike Norvell, a few of the assistant coaches would also talk on him about kind of playing ticked off at practice, and it kind of happened in the middle of the season there. And during the losing stretch, what do you think you saw from Jordan Travis saying, oh, something switched? Where do you think that was in the season?
I mean, he's always had that competitive fire, that competitive edge. We went on that 3-game skid, and in my opinion, I mean, he realized, not that he didn't before, but I mean, he really started to take true ownership in everything. In his preparation and the way that he came out to work, how it affected his teammates, holding his teammates accountable, and us as coaches holding each other and holding our players accountable. I mean, that's a huge part of it. But I mean, a guy like Jordan, just with his competitiveness and his grit and everything, I think that he just willed this program and this team to continue to climb like we did. And that's all credit to that kid, because it's easy to, when things aren't going well, to find what's wrong as long as it's not you, you know. Mm-hmm. But he kind of kicked it into another gear, and he's always been critical of himself, but I mean was truly driven to be the best him, Sunday to Sunday, every single day, you know, which is obviously really cool to coach. But yeah, I couldn't pinpoint an exact time, but I mean he's had that. It's that fire, it's that drive that he has.
I wanted to jump back a little bit further on Jordan Travis, because you got to Florida State, I believe, in December 2019, when shortly after Mike Norvell was hired. So just going through those initial weeks, months, even years, because you spent the first 2 years, obviously, as a senior offensive analyst before taking over as quarterbacks coach this past season. When was it that you first realized that Jordan had this potential to be a special quarterback and now potentially be a guy that leads Florida State as the all-time leader in touchdowns scored by a quarterback?
Yeah, I mean, pretty early on, you recognize the God-given talents, right? I mean, super explosive athlete. I mean, you could put him in a phone booth or out in a farm field, you know what I mean? And it's going to be pretty hard to touch him either way. And then just the growth that he made and how he pushed himself just over the last year and a half, 2 years, to get to the point where he's at right now. I couldn't pinpoint an exact time, but what he showed was somebody that was willing to put in the work, somebody that was willing to be held accountable and coached. And ultimately that's helped his progress. So I think he is the product of somebody that hasn't given up, because it wasn't always easy. But at the same time, he's the product of somebody working his tail off and trusting his preparation. And then when his opportunities came, he capitalized on them. And so I'd say that about Jordan. I mean, couldn't exactly pinpoint it, but I mean, special player.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Going to some of the practices, we get to go to quite a few. Mike Norvell really lenient with us and allows us to get really good analysis to create content like this. But going to practice, how could you explain one from a coach's perspective to FSU fans? Because we've had players on air. We had Trayshawn Ward earlier this season and Ja'Kai Douglas, and they tell it. Yeah, it's tough. It makes us ready for Saturdays. But from your perspective, what do you think a practice under Mike Norvell is? And was it kind of shocking to see kind of how he runs things, or was you kind of adjusted and now you're rolling?
I think with coach and just our philosophy and how we practice in general is to strain the players more than what they'd see on Saturdays. Put them in adverse situations, whether that's actually true situational football or just competitive drills, one-on-one group drills, whatever that is. I think the fact that there's no wasted time in practice, you don't see a lot of walking on that field. And I mean, even like with my guys, with the quarterbacks, we're in special teams period, but we're very calculated on how we're going to use our individual, what is actual physical work, and then how we can tie in the mental side of it to the physical work, to the fundamental drill work, all of those things. But I'd say just the intensity at which we practice and how we try and strain our players and challenge them. Because, I mean, if you can put them in adverse situations on a consistent basis throughout the practice week and get those guys competing against each other on Saturdays, we've already faced the toughest situations. We've already faced the best opponents. You hear about all the great Florida State teams. Former players talk about what separated them from everybody else, and they always said it was practice. It was how we practiced and competed against each other. And then when Saturday came, it was one team. They were all together, pushing for the same goal, but they pushed each other before that point, and it helped their success on game day.
Definitely, and obviously, you're really familiar with Mike Norvell, having worked with him dating back to your time at Memphis and really a variety of roles. In 2019, you were the tight ends coach, elected to come here to Florida State in an off-field role before, eventually now working yourself up to quarterbacks coach here in Tallahassee. So can you just talk about the journey it's been like under Mike Norvell ever since Memphis kind of to now, and the growth that both of you have made over those years?
Right. Similar to the question that you asked about Jordan coming back and how it affected his decision, and just with it being a people-driven program, I guess. In this profession, you can go a lot of different ways. You can take there's a lot of different opportunities that show up. For me, whether it was when I chose to stay at Memphis with Coach Norvell or come here and take an off the field role, I knew I was choosing a high caliber human being, somebody that very similar to Jordan, somebody that cares about the success of others, that wants to see people become the best version of themselves. And he's going to challenge you. I mean, just like coach challenges the players to be the best version of themselves, he challenges the coaches. I mean, and that's not just in football. He wants to find ways to help grow and develop us as men, whether it's me, one of the younger guys on the staff, or a coach that's been doing it for 25 years, 30 years, and so for that, I mean, I just have so much respect for that man and the belief and confidence that he's had in me, and just everything that he's poured into me to make me the best version of me. And so, I mean, the decision was easy, even though it was an off the field role to come here and everything. I knew exactly where I stood, and I knew the vision. I believed in the vision. Even though it didn't always come to fruition early on here, he does things from the heart, and he cares. And if you're around good people that work hard and care about other people, things will fall into place. And I think you're starting to see that here in Tallahassee now.
Yeah, and like you said, it didn't always go right in those first 2 years. So for this year, to win 10 games, to get back to the postseason, beat a national brand like Oklahoma in the Cheez-It Bowl, and especially with how some of the games went down to the wire, how much did it feel, for you, the rest of the coaching staff, to have a season like this?
I mean, it's special, but people don't realize all the time how hard it is to win 10 games in college football. And it's special. I mean, our guys are going to change that number up on the wall of 10-win seasons here at Florida State. That's something that we talked about a little bit as a program. And that's credit to obviously the coaches, but the kids. I mean, to be a 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22-year-old kid and things don't always go your way, especially in today's day and age, it's really easy to take the easy way out. And our players, the guys that stuck it out, that stood up for each other, that cared about each other, that continued to push each other. I mean, you're seeing the the fruits of their labor now in a 10-win season. And was it perfect? No. I mean, we all know that there's plenty that we can all work on and everything, whether it's coaches or players or whatever the case. But I mean, it was a special year, and I think it sets us up to have some good momentum going into the off season, and our guys are going to embrace that. We're going to work like we haven't worked before, and you guys know the standard of work here for us. So I think that's going to say a lot, and I'm excited to move forward.
Someone that stuck around for quite a long while and had the roller coaster ride and now is going to enter into the NFL draft is going to be Pokey. What a season for him. The big plays. We were in New Orleans, and the show that he put on nationally was incredible to watch. But I just respect him for staying. You know, you had a big wide receiver transfer class coming in. He decides to stay, a veteran guy, and competes and ends up keeping his starting job. And now has the season that he did and isn't maybe talked about a whole ton, but you know, that just kind of goes with how the wide receiver room changed on the Ron Dugans this season. Yeah. What do you say about Pokey in the season that he put through in the career at Florida State?
Just the growth that we've seen from Pokey from when we first got here to now him taking the steps to go prepare himself for the next level. I mean, it's been tremendous. As a person, as a player, there was an instance early in fall camp where I was coaching up a group for a ball security drill, and I start correcting one of the younger players. It was his first time doing the drill, and his partner was Pokey. And as I'm starting to apply the correction, I see Pokey behind him, talking to him, coaching him up through the drill. And so once I realized what was happening, I took a step back and I let Pokey kind of take ownership of that moment. And it was something that was pointed out to the group later. But I think that I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now. that instance right there, I think it showed a lot about Pokey. It showed a lot about our program, embracing, challenging each other, coaching each other, holding each other accountable. And then as something as monotonous as a ball security circuit can get throughout the season, it's something that he took ownership of in that moment, which I think was really impressive. But I'm super excited to see how things turn out for Poke. He's a guy that's been through some adversity and everything, and we are obviously really blessed and thankful for his contributions to our program.
I wanted to ask about one of my favorite moments of the season. You know, Friday night in Louisville, Jordan Travis goes down in the first half. You're trailing 21-14 at halftime, and then Tate Rodemaker, 5 out of 8 in the second half, 2 touchdowns, no turnovers, is able to lead the team to a massive comeback win and what looked like an improbable scenario at the time. So to see him do that and that moment in a big stage where he had to step in unexpectedly, I mean, what did that mean to you, you know, especially in your first season as quarterbacks coach?
I mean, in our room, we talk about being prepared, even though whether you're the starter, whether you're running scout team, whatever it is, you got to prepare as if you're going to start. And Tate has been through his share of adversity in his career so far here at Florida State. And I mean, he's another guy that just refused to quit, refused to give up. What can I do to get better, coach? Takes ownership of the coaching and then works his best to apply it. And then leading into that week, I felt like it was one of his better weeks of preparation up to that point, up until that point in time. And when he got out there, he made some plays. I mean, a lot of people don't realize it, but the first play that he goes into the game, he throws a corner route to Johnny Wilson. And I mean, it's a hair off, but I mean, he's standing in there and just rips it. And I think what that shows is just the confidence that he's built within himself, within the system, the scheme, and the guys around him see that. So with Tate, I'm excited to see his continued growth and to see how he can continue to push other guys, himself and other guys in our room.
Going to a young guy in your room, AJ Duffy, got to see him in the spring, fall, practice, all that kind of stuff, and got a little bit of playing time in 2022. What is the biggest part in growth that you've seen from him since arriving in Tallahassee to you, Tony?
Sure. Just applying meeting room to field. I mean, any freshman that comes in, I don't care if you're if you're a linebacker, if you're a wide receiver, whatever it is, quarterback. I mean, it's one thing to do it in the meeting room and to talk through scheme and talk through film. But at the end of the day, the game is still fast when you get out there as a young guy. And I think just as the season progressed and went on, it starts to slow down for him a little bit. That's why I'm excited for this spring for Age, because he'll get a chance to get out there, get a good bit of reps and everything, and continue that growth. I mean, I think that the more, especially with quarterback, it's really any position, but especially with quarterback, once the game slows down, you can get to that point at this position where you're almost dictating the game. You know, you already know what your answers are because you've gone over it so many times in your head or in a meeting or taking the reps mentally or physically. And then now he gets a chance to go out there and continue to build on that. So I'm super excited just to watch AJ grow, continue to push him and push the rest of that room.
And we've talked about the majority of the quarterback room, so let's talk about the latest addition here. You guys got a big flip late in the fall, getting Brock Glenn from Ohio State. How big was it to flip him? You know, obviously he made that commitment to Ohio State over the summer, and you guys continued to pursue and were able to pull that off. Yeah. And what do you feel like he's going to add to the room, especially getting here as an early enrollee in January?
I hate using the term flip, but I mean, at the end of the day with Brock, his recruitment was unique just because of the amount of connecting pieces we had with him and here at Florida State. It was truly just a relationship-based recruitment. I mean, he was a kid that we were familiar with pretty early on in the process, and just the communication stayed consistent. And I mean, at the end of the day, we were able to come out on top. I mean, I think what he brings to the room is he's competitive. He is tough. The dude is a football guy. I mean, I think I told you guys earlier at one point, I'm doing the home visit, and he's got a big whiteboard, like one that you see in a coach's office. And every visit he went on, he would come back and draw up plays that he learned, which I think is pretty cool. I mean, and the dude he's a football guy. I think that his addition to the room will continue to push everybody. And he, just like any freshman, he's going to go through his lumps and go through his growing pains. But I think the number one thing that you're going to see in that room is just the competitiveness and the toughness. And that's not just Brock, that's everybody else. Because in my opinion, whether you can agree or disagree, but I think that to be a great quarterback, one of the key characteristics that you can have is to be a tough person. Generally, when you're a tough person, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever that combination is, with that usually comes some form of leadership. And I think you can just look at Jordan Travis, for example. I don't think anybody can really question him as a leader for us. And he's displayed that toughness. And it's something that some guys just have it, but also you got to go through some stuff too, you know, and Jordan has, and that's continued to callous him, and it's helped him. So, but yeah, excited about the room. I mean, this is going to be a fun spring.
I talked with you after early signing day about one of these players on the same side of the field, true freshman coming in, a target that might be a future one for Glenn, Hykeem Williams, a player that stuck with his commitment to you guys, and a lot of schools across the country obviously trying to hit him up consistently, trying to get him to flip to another program, and he ends up sticking with you guys. What do you say about Hykeem Williams just as a person, the way that he held that commitment and stuck with Florida State, Mike Norvell, and you? And then also as a player, you look at film, what does he bring onto the field?
I mean, he's another one, just the relationship piece of it. I mean, Coach Dugans did a great job with him and his family. Coach Atkins, Coach Norvell. I mean, I think one of the things that when you look back at Hykeem or as you get to know him is you're gonna see that he's a person that genuinely cares about other people. We were talking offline earlier. My wife is pregnant, and he's already calling him little bro. Always, every time he's seen my wife, he's asked how she's doing, how's the baby gonna be. Like, I mean, he genuinely takes takes time to show that he cares and it's real. From the physical standpoint, I mean, it's going to be fun having him as another weapon. I mean, you get a big, long guy that he can take the top off. He can do things if you get the ball in his hands now. It's going to be an exciting weapon to have. And I mean, I think as you guys have seen, the versatility that we can use guys and coaches offense. I mean, we'll find ways to get guys the ball. That certainly won't be an issue. So it'll be a fun tool. We just got to get it to them, right?
Feels like this Florida State coaching staff really enjoys working together and is really in sync with one another. So what's that relationship like, the coaching balance between you, offensive coordinator Alex Atkins, and Mike Norvell?
I think it comes down to we're comfortable in our own skin. We don't have to pretend to be that somebody that we're not. You can put ego aside. I mean, at the end of the day, coach's offense it's shown to be elite. Our job is to go out and execute it in his vision. He does a great job, and I mean, I really tip the cap to him on this. Is he's run this system, and obviously it's grown and evolved over the years and everything. But I mean, he listens too. I mean, if we have an idea or something pops up and it fits with what we want to do schematically, his ears are open. And that's not always the case. I mean, any coach can attest to that. But I think what it comes down to is just the fact that we're so comfortable with who we are as individuals, and we all bring something a little bit different to the table, personality wise, football wise, everything. So it is a great atmosphere to work in. Our staff meetings are pretty good. And I love these guys, man. It's like to work for a guy like Alex Atkins. I mean, he's awesome. I can't say enough good things about him. And again, I've said it a couple times about our kids, but it's true with our staff too. You care about other people, and you know that other people care. I mean, you get a chance to do some special things. So
I was going to ask real quick, who's the loudest at practice? Is it Mike or is it Coach JP? Because I've always kind of tried to figure this out. That's what I'm really analyzing up there during practice, Tony. That's what I'm using my time.
Can't forget about Odell, though.
Odell, you can usually hear him across the one practice field. You usually can.
I don't know. I mean, Coach JP can get up there pretty good, but
speed.
I don't know. I don't know if anybody can ever match. I don't know if anybody can ever match Coach Norvell. So
no, probably not. Probably not. I've only got two more actually. One will be a quick one, real quick. What's your favorite spot to eat in Tallahassee? You've been here for a while now. There's got to be one to go to. The wife likes to go to. And you have got
pregnancy cravings.
So I'm gonna be totally honest with you.
And it can be fast food. That's fine. That's fine.
It is fast food-ish, okay? I'm a huge fan of the wings at the Hobbit.
Oh, okay. Now
I'm a big wings guy. Love wings.
So we love Hobbit. We literally actually love Hobbit. We had them on as a sponsor last year. So
okay.
They need to renew for moments like this.
Golly, I know. Yeah, the wings. What sauce are we getting now?
I'm a medium Fiesta guy. I like the I think it's the honey bourbon as well. That's one. Yeah. You can never go wrong with the garnet and gold. I mean,
no,
you almost have to get garnet and gold, right?
Yeah, you have to.
But,
so boneless or bone in?
That's bone in, man. Come on now.
Oh, thank you.
Come on, man.
Thank you. Jeez. Oh goodness, yeah. That's I don't know why that's even a debate. That's just chicken nuggets with sauce.
We've got to ask.
Right.
Yeah, no, but I'll end it off on my end here, Tony, and appreciate you hanging on with us for 30 minutes now. Truly appreciate that. I know the listeners are going to love this. What are you looking forward to the most going into next season? Obviously, you've got a big offseason ahead, and Coach Storms has a lot to work with, and I know he's excited. But what are you looking forward to once you're into 2023 season and get going there? What excites you personally?
Yeah, I mean, the faces will change, the opponents will change and everything. But the thing that honestly excites me the most is just another opportunity to go out and be the best us. We set a high bar for us here after this past season, but we also know what the standard is at Florida State. we know what our own standard is from an individual standpoint, and that's excellence. So it starts day by day, whether it's a play in practice or a rep in the weight room. I mean, just challenging ourselves to push and be better than we've been. Be better tomorrow, or be better today than we were yesterday. Be better tomorrow than we were today. So I think that's what excites me most is the opportunity to go out and do that.
And I guess, I mean, my question's kind of similar, but I know you guys would never say this, but compared to the national media, people could say that Florida State maybe overperformed a little bit in 2022 and maybe was flying a little bit under the radar. But now you guys are on the radar, and you're as much as the hunted, quote unquote, as you were the hunter this season. So do you feel like going into this offseason, all these expectations, you're already seeing these, I don't know if you see it, but these 2 early top 25s and Florida State's in the top 5. Do you feel like you guys have to have a different mentality entering this offseason? Sure.
I mean, it's out there. But the focus, just like it is in season, just like it is all the time here, the focus is on us. We're the only ones that can beat us when it comes down to it. And if we focus on us, and like I said earlier, being the best version of ourselves, the rest takes care of itself. And you know what? If things don't go our way, but we're the best version of us, that's something that you can look back and look in the mirror with and live with that, right? But I know everybody talks about expectations and all that. I mean, the expectation here is to be the best version of ourselves. So I mean, that's all I really got to say about that. But I mean, it'll be a fun off season. We'll be able to get after it pretty good. And I mean, spring ball's right around the corner too. And I mean, there's going to be opportunity, but with what we do with each individual day and our growth in that day, can we be better in that day? That's what's truly important.
Well, Tony, super appreciative of you hopping on here with us. This was incredible. I know the chat is loving it too. So appreciate you coming on and spending 30 minutes with us on a work day late at night like this. So, Tony, looking forward to hopefully having you on in the future, and good luck. Maybe get a little break, and good luck with having the little one too very, very soon. So
best of luck.
I appreciate it. Hey, I got one question though. Okay.
Oh no.
So Dustin, are you a boneless guy?
I'm a versatile guy.
Okay. All right. You're multiple.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
The last time we
went, the wing place that we go to, Hobbit, I will do some bone in. I'll switch it up and do boneless every now and then.
It shouldn't be you will. It's just like, yeah, I'll get that. It's just that should be mandatory. That's just how it should be. Come on.
I'm an ever-changing man. Different moods require different foods.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you'll be sitting out there in that hot ass sun too whenever you're getting out there for recruiting. Enjoy the coolness now, D-Lou. Enjoy now.
Yeah.
Tony just trots out and then comes back in.
They let us in every now and then, but we'll see what happens. Slide me a key card on Saturday if you can, Tony.
Yeah, I'm sure that.
Right. I'll remember that.
Yeah. All right, Tony, before we get you in trouble, let's let you go. Appreciate you, man, and we'll see you soon, I'm sure.
Appreciate you guys.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tony.
Sweet deal. Great show there. We've been looking forward to that interview for quite a while, and I know the listeners heavily interested in hearing what Tony is talking about after an awesome season, definitely working with Jordan Travis in the season he had, Tate Rodemaker. I'm glad that you brought up that question about the Louisville game, because that was one of the most pivotal parts in the season for me. I know we'll probably review it next week or soon, but that what Tony was able to do with Rodemaker, and then obviously Jordan Travis, what a year for a first year head coach, quarterbacks coach. Golly, Tony, not there yet.
Moving up the ranks
eventually.
Real quick.
I might be a couple years early, Tony. I might just be a couple of years early.
But yeah, that was the first time I've ever had a guest question me. So thought the interview went really well, getting some insight, especially into not only Jordan Travis, but also the quarterbacks farther back on the roster that maybe you don't hear about as much, and especially hearing more about, Tokarz and that connection in Norvell, how they kind of got started, because, it's big for Tony to be a position coach at Memphis, an on-field assistant as the tight ends coach, and then to move to Florida State in an off-field role, work his way back up to being promoted to quarterbacks coach at, at a high level like Florida State and the ACC, especially with where this program's going right now. Very impressive interview. A guy who's on the right track and excited to continue following his coaching career in Tallahassee.
Yep, same here. Absolutely. Let's jump into some quick hitters, D. Lou. This won't be a crazy long pod. VZ, our co-host, is currently at the Wake Forest game right now covering that. So
hasn't started.
Not going to have him.
Though.
No, I don't think he's going to pop in, though. He's making sure that he's getting his tweet pictures out and everything, which I would rather him do that. Don't even worry. There's too much good football stuff to be talking about here tonight. So let's jump into the big thing that happened. We've got to start chronologically.
Well, there was a couple.
Well, there's definitely some big things, but I think this one overall from the Twitter, FSU Twitter, the reaction it got, how the way we kept on hyping up and talking about it, articles left and right. This one's a pretty big one. Jared Verse, Florida State star defender, is going to be returning for the 2023 season for the Florida State Seminoles, and Adam Fuller on the defensive side, something that I think all of us were optimistic that it was going to happen last week. Ended up happening, and wow, the reaction, I kind of felt like, I don't know, it felt more important than New Year's, everything. Like seeing him and making his announcement was huge for Florida State. And it makes a big time addition once again to Florida State's pursuit and pressure on the defensive side for next season.
We all made our predictions last Wednesday, me, you, and Austin, and we came out 3 for 3. All of us predicted Jared Verse to return to Florida State. And yeah, I mean, this is to say the least, a huge one. You get back your best pass rusher, a guy who was disruptive off the edge the entire season. And I think it's important to remember, and I mean, everyone knows this, but Jared Verse wasn't fully healthy the entire season. He suffered that injury against Louisville, that he missed the game against Boston College, was limited there a little bit moving forward for a couple of weeks. So we haven't even seen him really at his best. And I think, Logan, you said it on the podcast last week, but Coach JP, Coach Fuller have mentioned that he's not even at his best, kind of fundamentally wise as a defensive end. He's still got room to grow there. And still, I mean, this guy moved from the FCS to the FBS and recorded 17 tackles for loss and 9 sacks last year alongside 48 total tackles, and really kind of saved his best for last there with a season-high 7 tackles against Oklahoma in the bowl game. So it feels like Jared Verse is really just beginning to blossom, and you've got to be really excited with what he'll be able to do with another offseason under his belt, more experience with the coaching staff, and then look at the rest of the defensive ends. I mean, you've got Patrick Payton coming back, ACC Defensive Rookie of the Year last season. Derek McClendon, a productive veteran who's been around for a while. We'll get to him in a minute, but Gilbert Edmond transferring in from South Carolina. And behind that, some developmental guys, Byron Turner, Aaron Hester, Dante Anderson, Lamont Green Jr., and Jaden Jones coming in. So at the top, you've got some real experience and talent there that's, going to create some chaotic situations for opposing offenses. And at the bottom, some real interesting developmental young talent that could be something real in the future.
Exactly. It feels like a gigantic momentum swing. That's what it's felt like for the last couple of weeks of all these guys announcing their return. And then at the end, you have Jared Verse. It just feels like a huge turn into 2023 where, they are fighting to make a run here, a big time run. They're reloaded and they're loading up. And that's what Mike Norvell has in plan for this. And his third year and going into his fourth. I think, and we'll review it later, but I think there's just so much to look back at and see, wow, which areas did Mike Norvell grow the most and different ways. And I don't know. It's just setting up to be a fun one, definitely with Jared Verse and the tenacity that he brings at practices. Dustin, it's fun to watch, but, guys respect him because he competes and doesn't take it off the field or anything. But when they get to practice, it's all competition, and just the way that he brought the mentality once arriving that early, kind of like acting like that, to gain that respect so quickly just says something about what Mike Norvell's putting in the locker room, number one, and number two, what Jared Verse is as a human.
That's a good point, because not only was he productive on the field, but he developed into such an important leader for Florida State's defense. Was one of those guys that brought intensity, brought passion, and it just felt like whenever he was out there, these guys played a little bit harder for one another. So yeah, to me, it speaks a lot because, like you said, he came into the program and instantly made that impact. It wasn't a guy maybe like Jordan Travis or Fabian Lovett who had been here for a couple years, growing into that role. No, Verse came out of the gate ready to set the tone at FSU, and we saw it in the spring, but it really blossomed and bubbled up there in fall camp when he was getting these guys hyped up coming into practice, whether it was talking trash to the running backs, talking trash to the coaches, doing whatever he needs to do for the team to bring the energy that he wants that day. And, it doesn't feel fake with him. It feels very calculated, and he uses these type of moments to bring some real energy to the team, juice them up a little bit. And I think it's just going to be even bigger having him back in the program for another year. And even in practice, this is a guy, just a redshirt sophomore. It was his first year at Florida State after starting his career at the FCS level. And he's already sitting over there coaching up some of the younger guys who he's just been around for a couple months, and they're listening to him, listening to those tips. So I think these guys believe in Jared Verse. They believe in what he can do on the field and also as a leader. So this return, it impacts Florida State in multiple ways.
It sure does. Let's jump into some other big news. It's just been kind of flying. Some things like this happen.
What's
but
next?
Let's jump into we need to talk about this next defensive backs coach, because I think all of us weren't expecting maybe that to happen as maybe not as quickly as it was, but we really weren't on schedule there. But, oh, hey, this is happening right here, and really wasn't a name that was highly talked about initially on the docket. Patrick Surtain, Sr., is going to be Florida State's next defensive backs coach going into the 2023 season. 11 years in the league. You know what he's done down there in American Heritage, coaching one of the top-tier elite schools in the country at the high school level, definitely down in that area down in Florida where there's some really good competition. He is now going to be coaching for Florida State in that secondary group, which is a lot of young talent, a lot of proven talent too coming back. But this is a pretty big hire for Florida State, and also what he was able to do with his son, who was an absolute baller, going into, I believe, the Denver Broncos, if I'm not too crazy. Yep. So just to see what he was able to develop, and then also do that American Heritage, develop those guys, and they look more college ready than anything. There's a lot of stuff that you do like about this. And then even on the recruiting side, Dustin, which you can probably explain a little bit better.
As you said, coming in as the next defensive backs coach, probably going to get the title as defensive passing game coordinator as well, because that was something that Marcus Woodson held in his previous role. Defensive assistant for the Miami Dolphins this past year. Obviously, right now they're in the playoffs, so it seems like he's going to be joining FSU once that playoff run is complete. Dolphins are going to be playing this Sunday against Buffalo on the road, so it's going to be a tough one. But prior to gaining this year of experience at the NFL level, Logan kind of went into it a little bit, but spent 9 years at American Heritage High School, one of the South Florida powers down there in Broward County, was promoted to head coach in 2016 and led them to a 65 and 10 record between 2016 and 2021, 3 state championships, was around constant talented recruits. I mean, the list goes on from his own son, Marvin Jones Jr., Damari Brown. Man, so many guys have come out of American Heritage over the years and gone to programs across the country. And with that experience as a high school coach down there in South Florida, that means he's built some really close connections to other guys. That's going to help Florida State immensely on the recruiting trail, I believe. And this hire is already generating a ton of buzz from some recruits that we've talked to. And even further into it, played a New Orleans native who played at Edna Carr High School. Logan, you want to chime in there?
Is that where Destin Hill played football there?
Guy? Yeah, but that's where Greedy Vance is from. That's who I was referring to.
I got that wrong. Dang it. Yeah, that's right. That's Greedy Vance's place. I should have known that. Damn it.
So, you get some Louisiana ties out of this. He played his college ball at Southern Mississippi, so you get some Mississippi recruiting ties out of this. Those are 2 areas that Florida State has been involved in since Mike Norvell arrived in Tallahassee, and obviously the vast South Florida recruiting connection. So a huge hire for Florida State, a proven developer, a guy who has proven that he can connect with high school recruits by, being a successful coach at that level. And I think you've got to be really excited, not only with what he can do on the recruiting trail, but also as a developer of talent. And going to be interesting to see that balance as things move forward here and Surtain officially becomes a member of the program. We're still waiting on that official announcement from Florida State.
Yeah, we got the little Mike Norvell bat signal, though. I like that. He did that pretty quickly. That was within 30 minutes, too. He made sure he got that out there. But he's obviously super excited for that hire. I just think you see Marcus Woodson, he goes off to do Arkansas, and we've said it so many dang times. Mike Norvell always has a plan B, C, D, E, and I think this one had to have been known for a little while now, and Florida State makes a big name hire that maybe not a lot of us were expecting a ton, but I look at the talent now that he gets to come in and work with, and development is something that was highly stressed and talked about throughout the season. And, going through the review of the season, we've been bringing it up, Florida State, if they are going to move on from a coach, it might be Marcus Woodson. They just want to see more out of that, including recruiting. But I'm just wanting to see, Azare Thomas, what can Patrick Surtain do with a guy that has shown us so many signs of special talent, and you saw it there at the end of the Oklahoma game. We saw it all throughout the season, him getting more playing time, and we saw it in practices early on. What can Surtain do with a guy like Azare Thomas and some of the younger guys, even some of the safeties that are coming in, but primarily at the cornerback position, which he has a really nice track record of developing and putting guys into the league and doing it and different levels, and it's now going to be in Garnet Gold.
Definitely. And there were some other names on the board. We talked about Torian Gray over at South Carolina. He ended up getting a 2-year extension and a raise from the Gamecocks. And also Mike Trier, assistant defensive backs coach for the New York Giants, was another hot name on the board that had some connections to Fuller from their time at Marshall. And he was also a guy maybe with some recruiting ties in South Florida, was the recruiting coordinator at Marshall as well. I know Florida State at least gauged Trier's interest in the job. And, from what I heard, the number they offered was very generous, but he elected in the end to stay with the New York Giants. And maybe that led to things progressing with Patrick Surtain. But regardless, Florida State, they did their research on this hire, checked all the boxes, and it seems like Patrick Surtain could be a good one in Tallahassee, not only, like I said earlier, as a developer of talent, but also as a recruiter. And some recruiting reactions just early on here. 5-star defensive back KJ Bolden in the 2024 class said, "I think it's a great move for the program." One of the best prospects in the 24 class, 4-star wide receiver Chance Robinson said, "That's huge. He is a family friend of mine, and that really brings attention to the local talent here in South Florida because he's a recognized name with credibility behind his name." You've also got 4-star defensive back Jordan Johnson Rubel, who said, "I feel like it's a great hire. He's an ex-NFL player, so he knows what he's talking about. Also, he molded his son into a great corner as well, so that's a big thing for me." And then moving on, Edwin Joseph, Florida State signee during the early signing period, got his comment on the hire. He's set to enroll at Florida State in the summer. He said, "I feel great. I feel like he will push me and teach me a lot of things that I need. I feel like he's a very hands-on coach, and that's the type of coach I would love to play for." And then finally, on it off with this one, Ashton Hampton, guy who's got some ties to Florida State through his father, said, "A very amazing hire from Florida State, considering the players he has coached, and I'm extremely excited to try and build a relationship with him." So some early returns from recruits in not only the 2023 class that have signed with Florida State, but also in the 2024 class that Florida State maybe wasn't on the radar before. When you think of a guy like KJ Bolden or some of these other highly talented defensive backs, now you bring in Patrick Surtain, and that interest level is rising a little bit. Florida State, get them in the door and see what happens from here.
It's interesting to see the rivals and their reactions, though. That was probably one of the
They weren't happy.
Fun parts about it. Yeah. The screenshots of message boards across college football, Florida and Miami there, and then just regular tweets were out there, and they weren't too happy about this hire and not happy with what Mike Norvell did, but it is what it is. And, Mike Norvell gets his guy at the defensive backs position group. And I'm just really interested to see how he develops some of these guys, and definitely the corner spot with Renardo. And like I said, Azare, it should be fun to watch during practice, because that is going to be a competitive group once again. And, it was good to see Jerry and Jones put the check mark out once the news started breaking, and it seemed like he approved of this hire also. So good stuff. Let's jump into, another announcement of some good stuff on Florida State side, with another defensive end coming into the realm at the defensive line. D-Lou, you were actually able to interview him during his visit. Gilbert Edmond from South Carolina, a fan base that certainly isn't fond of Florida State and what's going on here under Norvell with all these transfers coming over here, and having success. But 2 years of eligibility, Florida State talked about earlier, Jared Verse coming back, but you're able to add some more depth. I always think there's some certain position groups in football, Dustin, but you'd probably agree you can never not have enough edge rushers, definitely in the college level when you can, and have more numbers than the NFL. So what do you think, D'Lo, of this and the grab that Florida State is now going to have with Coach JP and Adam Fuller and Odell Higgins?
A big pickup, another grab for Florida State. Out of the SEC, joining Jaheim Bell, obviously coming from South Carolina as well, and Keandre Jones, the offensive lineman who Florida State was able to add from Auburn. But Gilbert Edmond, a really high potential defensive end who started to kind of realize some of that potential this past season while with South Carolina, played over 650 snaps in the SEC, which obviously everyone knows is one of the best conferences in the sport. So gained some really good experience against some tough competition. Ended up recording 39 tackles, 9 tackles for loss, and 2 sacks while appearing in all 12 regular season games, 10 starts with South Carolina this year. Didn't play in the bowl game while he was evaluating his options for a transfer, obviously. But yeah, a big pickup for Florida State. Leonard Warner moving on, graduating after the season from FSU. So there's a spot to fill in the defensive end rotation. And regardless, Jared Verse obviously coming back. We'll see if Edmond's able to work his way as a starter opposite of Verse, or whether that goes to Patrick Payton or Derek McClendon or someone else in that defensive end room. But regardless of who starts, Florida State, they really love to play that 4-man rotation at defensive end, and depending on the situation, the situationals and everything. So I definitely think Edmond is going to have a role on this defense. How big of a role to be determined by how things go during the spring, over the summer, and then in fall camp. But regardless, this is a guy for Florida State who's not only going to impact the defense this season, but also for the coming seasons. And you get, a guy who's going to grow at that spot alongside another guy who has a ton of potential, and Patrick Payton. So those two guys together over the next couple of years, you're not just looking at this year, you're looking at years to come as well.
Yep, definitely helps too, having those extra ones to help develop. And if you can do that and put them along Pat Payne, and a guy that we've seen some signs of growth near the end of the season with Byron Turner Jr., just seeing that right there and having that in the room, it's going to help too. I think just competitively wise, Gilbert Edmonds, he's going to find out it's these practices for Coach Atkins and Odell. They're going to go against each other quite a bit. I mean, it's almost every practice where these guys are physically going at it competitively, but iron sharpens iron. But Edmond, come on in. And I think too, you're seeing a JP line here of guys that they're going to put into the draft. You've already done it with Jermaine Johnson. He'd had his time there, yes, at Georgia, yes, but he comes in for a year, has the success that he did, and then now Jared Verse comes in, and Jared Verse wants to be coached by JP, and now he's going to stay for 2 years, which I think is huge for him developmental-wise. He's going to be first, second round at the latest in 2 years' time, and then now look at Pat Payton. There's just JP's starting to get it going here, and it's working out really well. So I don't blame Edmond on saying, hey, why not? Even if I've got a couple of my South Carolina guys here with me.
And kind of to your point, that was a big pitch for Florida State in this recruiting process. Like you said, have already had tremendous success with bringing in defensive ends out of the transfer portal, developing them, and then sending them off into better situations, whether that's Jermaine Johnson becoming a first-round pick now in the NFL, Keir Thomas, I know he went undrafted, but still with the Los Angeles Rams right now. And then Jared Verse, who clearly has a future at the professional level, potentially would have been a first-round pick this season, but is coming back to Florida State to solidify his status as a
top 10 pick.
Yeah, a top 15, top 10 pick in the 2024 draft. So Florida State, they've got a proven pedigree of developing these transfer edge players, and Edmond, the next in line there. And he also said in his interview, it didn't hurt that the new student union over at Florida State is going to have a bar in it.
I do like that comment. That's interesting to me. Could you imagine? Hey, Gilbert, what you doing over there?
Well, let's talk about Florida State's new pipeline, because South Carolina, you've got Jamie Robinson Keir Thomas, Jason Turnantine, Jaheim Bell, and now Gilbert Edmonds. So 5 players in the last 3 years that have come to Florida State from South Carolina. Who's next?
Yeah, who is next? Who is very next? Yeah, Jaheim is someone that I wanted to try to squeeze into with Tony Tokarz earlier, but just didn't have enough time. But, that's someone I couldn't imagine is probably just licking his chops along with your other tight end that came in, Morlock. I think with having Kyle there, Jaheim, Tony's, I know, got to be pretty stoked for next season. But, yeah, that definitely helps too, having another edge rusher come in, I think. You can never have enough. Let's end it off. I think there might be a couple more, but the one that I do want to mention is Malik McClain. This one, kind of a surprise. I wouldn't say, I guess it would. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a surprise. I think maybe you could name some others ahead of him that you think would maybe move on. But Malik McClain, man, now practically felt like a veteran just because of how much playing time he had 2 years ago in 2021 coming in as a true freshman. But seeing him stay, obviously he could have maybe entered the transfer portal before the 2022 year, stays, competes alongside a lot of the other guys that were with Florida State beforehand. He stays, has some pretty big plays, makes an impact. I will say he's an impactful wide receiver for Florida State. He got a lot of playing time this season. Is going to go ahead and put his name in tested waters in the NCAA transfer portal. D-Lou, you and I, got some kind of scoop on him heading into his first year at FSU. He was going through practices and kind of had a while to adjust, I would say, to maybe Mike Norvell and the process, alongside a lot of guys that were new to this and what Mike Norvell was bringing in Tallahassee. He was one that took a little while to maybe stay focused towards what he was needing to do. And then, boom, we see him at some of the open scrimmages. And wow, holy crap, Malik McClain is getting about the most playing time as much as the quarterbacks are getting during it. And he's making plays, and he's like, okay, hold up now, Malik McClain. And then he ends up playing as a true freshman, starts games, and then obviously this year. I would say it's an impactful player that you lose offensively, but the good part about it, though, Ron Dugans has a stacked room.
He's shown a lot of upside during his first 2 years at Florida State. I don't remember if it was over the spring or if it was during fall camp where he was just having a really tremendous stretch. And I was looking at him and I was like, man, this is a potential star in the making for Florida State on the outside. And I know it didn't all come to fruition in Tallahassee with Johnny Wilson stepping up and growing into something special, and Micah Pittman being that solid veteran, Ontario Wilson being a guy who had been here forever and having a really standout year for Florida State. So, it didn't come to fruition in Tallahassee, but I think wherever Malik McClain does end up, there's definitely star potential to be tapped in his skill set. But when it came to things at Florida State, kind of makes you think a little bit of Treshaun Ward in that running back room, deciding to look elsewhere and eventually landing at Kansas State. Just maybe not enough guaranteed opportunity entering 2023 with Winston Wright expected to be back on the field this spring, hopefully. And then a bunch of other guys, Kentron Poitier, Darian Williamson. You mentioned it to Tony. You've got 5-star Hykeem Williams coming in. You've also got 4-star Vondravius Jacobs, who, is going to be a really good one for Florida State as well. And heck, I'm looking over here at my list. I forgot about Ja'Kai Douglas and Deuce Spann. So, there's just so many numbers at that unit. 11 scholarship wide receivers right now, even though Malik McClain has decided to move on. So, still a lot of numbers for Florida State at that position. And, last offseason, I feel like we would have discussed this maybe as a catastrophic loss for Florida State. But we saw some real developments from this unit. Some real talent is coming in to Florida State at the wide receiver spot. And it definitely hurts to see McClain move on because he didn't realize his potential at Florida State. But they've got a lot of good guys in that room as well.
Yeah, and I think, I'll be honest with you, I think he understands his maybe potential. It's just he doesn't – that's a lot of rotating, man, and you don't get a lot of playing time. You're putting yourself more at risk of not getting playing time. And I understand definitely, like Treshaun Ward, happy for him. I'm so glad in the position that he's going into with their star guy running back moving on into the league. go take that opportunity. And I think the same way is probably for Malik McClain. That's what the coaching staff is hoping for him. And I'm wondering if that's going to be the only player, though, in that room that we see that happen. I'm guessing not, in my opinion. Definitely once we go through spring, things are going to shake up as they usually do. So we'll be keeping a close eye on that. But, I'm wishing Malik McClain the best of luck, just like Trayshawn Ward, and getting his new opportunity up there at Kansas State at a really, really good opportunity, and be pulling for both of these guys wherever they end up landing. And there were a few other names too. Rod Orr over to Toledo. I know that we put that out. I'm
Malik
missing
Feaster to Memphis.
Yep.
George Wilson to FCS Campbell over the weekend. I think that's it for now. But I believe, if I'm correct, 8 players so far that have left Florida State have found new landing spots, and you've still got 6 guys now with Malik McClain entering the portal today who have yet to announce a transfer destination.
There have been a few polls out, D-Lou. I'll just mention these real quick. I don't think Tony really looks at them. Maybe he sees them on Twitter, but I take it that probably not going through some polls and stuff, maybe. But there's been a few out there on ESPN's way too early ranking. They put Florida State at number 4 there in the top 5, I believe, ahead of Alabama. Also, I wanted to kind of, you did it, Dustin, but I wonder how Tony and the coaching staff looks at this now, because the way that you send your message going into a season has got to be maybe a little bit different, or you keep it the same, just because of the approach that Florida State had in 2022. Not ranked, not really anybody looking at you. Cool, you got the LSU season opener type deal, yada yada yada, but nobody's really talking to you. You'll be on national media, but no one's expecting a whole ton. And then boom, 10 wins, and you put together a really nice improving season. I just wonder what the kind of difference is going to be for this team, just mental wise, and that's going to take a different turn for Mike that he hasn't really had to preach as much anymore since literally arriving in Tallahassee.
And that was kind of my point. I don't know if I worded the question right, but yeah, Florida State, they were flying under the radar entering the season. I can't remember exactly what the ACC projections were, but they were picked to finish tied for 5th in the ACC Atlantic or something wild like that at the beginning of the year in the preseason. And instead, even on this show, we thought Logan was overly optimistic when he predicted Florida State to go 8-4. And I picked 7-5. But, you could say Florida State overperformed their expectations this year. They were more of the hunter. And now entering this offseason, Florida State kind of the hunted with all of this hype surrounding them, all these players coming back, getting a lot of buzz. They're going to be at the forefront of that national picture. And every team on their schedule, they're already thinking about Florida State because of what this team is bringing back in 2023. And yeah, I do think you have to attack it a little differently because you're going to get every single team's absolute best on this schedule in 2023 because they know what you're bringing in. There's not going to be any types of surprises this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how not only the coaching staff, but the roster as well kind of operate through those expectations and how they deal with the pressure.
Certainly does seem like, though, we will be back in Orlando for a top 10 matchup. I will say that definitely has that kind of vibe to it. And what a way to kick off that year. Whew, that's going to be wild. Going to maybe, I'm trying to think, there were anything else that I think there was, we'll go through the rankings real quick. The AP poll putting Florida State at number 11. The coaches poll putting Florida State at 10. So you can officially say Florida State finishes the 2022 season as a top 10 team in college football, man. We'll put it, we'll just give them 10. We'll just give them 10. That's where it's going to be put everywhere. And then, now Jordan Travis has a Heisman website that's up there, getting a lot of love there. I don't think Jordan Travis is a national home name to everybody yet. I don't think he is yet. He's put on some really impressive, spectacular kind of performances, definitely on the national stage. I just don't think he's a household name like a CJ Stroud for him. Or maybe I'm trying to think, not even the TCU TCU kid. Bryce Young. I just don't think he's in those realm of names yet. And I think Florida State doing a little bit of marketing on their side, helping out. Why not? Why not throw it out there? And he's already got the stats, and he's about to break a lot of ridiculous Florida State quarterback records. Just kind of you're hinting and telling Tony Tokarz during the interview about the most touchdowns for next season from a Florida State football quarterback. Like there's some big records that he's already broken. He did this year, and he's about to next year. I think it's great. Why not market a Heisman campaign?
And the thing with Jordan is he doesn't care about doing the extra hoopla to try and draw attention to himself. He's worried about, his play on the field, his role as a leader for Florida State's team. I saw the interview today with ESPN. He was talking to Andrea Adelson and another reporter, but Florida State, I guess, was apparently trying to send Jordan Travis out to Los Angeles to the national championship game to get him on the national stage a little bit, build a little bit of that Heisman hype. But he ended up declining the trip because he just wanted to stay here and be around his teammates and focus on the goals that matter. And I think that just says a lot about Jordan Travis. We all know how good of a player he is on the field and what he's developed into at Florida State, but also the kind of person he is to block out that noise. And, they're focused on winning a national championship. And I think Jordan Travis would be happy if a Heisman came his way during the course of that pursuit. But that's not the ultimate goal for him, and he's looking at things that are bigger. You're muted.
You might just want to be his campaign manager after that right there. That was
Tell
pretty good.
Joe to give me a call.
Yeah, you might have a new gig. Who knew this? Politics. Anything else that I miss? I'm sure there's something, but I know there's usually recruiting things that I'm definitely not close to knowing, but anything else?
That's all I really have on my docket. I would just say recruiting opening back up this weekend. I believe it's either Friday or Saturday that the dead period officially lifts, but Florida State planning to have some talent on campus this weekend, going to have some guys throughout the month of January. It seems like the weekends are going to be what Florida State calls their junior days, where they try to get in a bunch of underclassmen, guys from the 24 class and on, down for visits to go ahead and start evaluating and building deeper relationships with some of these guys. So you can expect January to be pretty stacked, and Tony kind of alluded to it, but February, a dead period. And then after that, it just really turns up for the rest of the spring and the summer. And with Florida State this year, a proven product, 10 wins. The staff has entrenched themselves really in Tallahassee now for the coming years after a successful season like this. Recruits pay attention to that, and there's going to be a lot of talent coming through those doors at the Moore these next couple of months, whether it's for visits or for camps in the summer. Going to be an exciting time.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's pod. We're looking forward to having more guests just like Tony Tokarz all throughout the year and even throughout the rest of this month, maybe heading into February and on, definitely going into spring. So now there's a lot of time where there's more availability, definitely even maybe for some current players. So I'm going to try to load it up for you guys and try to bring some coverage and really get some an inside look at Florida State football and Mike Norvell's program, which is on a train ride to, seems like, some success here and could be a gigantic 2023 for the Seminoles.
Yep. And it begins right now because the tour of duty starts this week.
Yeah, I think that's on Friday, and I don't want anything to do with that. Every player that we've talked to, even just side conversations after practice, just asking, what's worse, practice or those fifth quarter drills? And that's that fifth quarter drills. The guys do not like that. So best of luck to them. I am not going to be involved in that. So we'll just sit here and talk about them. And
6 a.m. on Friday, I'll still be sleeping.
Yeah, 155%. And, this is also my favorite time of the year where we start seeing some guys posting some growth, some gym pics. I don't want to kind of sound like that, but like they're going to show some growth and some muscles and some mass, and we're going to see some new weights, maybe some heights. I don't know. We could see a Hykeem Williams. I don't know. We're going to see some cool stuff. One of my favorite parts of football. So now that I sound like a creep, let's end off this podcast. Appreciate Tony for coming on here and spending a lot of time with us on a busy work day. So shout out to Coach Tony Tokarz, Florida State's quarterbacks coach. And also, D-Lou, appreciate you hopping on here. VZ, I don't know what the score is up there at Wake Forest, but hopefully Florida State is able to come away with that one up there against the Demon Deacons. Dustin's shaking his head. Yes.
I'm trying to see if they –
well, you made it sound like they're up by like 20 or something. I was about to say, okay, they're doing good. It's going to suck, though, if they're losing. When you bring up the score to
it's
Baba Miller's.
It's 9-9.
Does Baba Miller have all the points? That's what I would be expecting right now.
Baba Miller was not in the starting lineup, so he actually has not touched the floor yet. It's only been about 3 minutes into the game.
Well, that goes to show how much of basketball I know, I don't know. Don't know.
They just tipped at like 9 o'clock, so.
Damn. Tough scenes. Well, yeah. Appreciate everybody listening. We will see you guys next week on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Y'all have a great rest of y'all's week and weekend, and enjoy the NFL playoffs. See you guys.